Most people think timing is minor, but physiology disagrees. When you eat changes what fuel gets used and restored. Timing matters most when training creates a specific metabolic demand. Without demand, meal timing becomes preference, not performance strategy. Hard training changes blood flow, hormones, glycogen, and protein turnover. That temporary shift creates windows where nutrients do different jobs. Pre-workout feeding mainly supports training quality, not magical muscle gain. Better sessions create more tension, and tension drives adaptation. Low energy before training often reduces volume, force, and focus. That means weaker stimulus, even if daily calories look perfect. Protein before training supplies amino acids during and after lifting. That can reduce breakdown and support earlier repair signaling. Carbohydrates before training help preserve glycogen and maintain high output. This matters more for long sessions, high volume, or endurance work. It matters less for short, easy sessions with full glycogen. Pre-workout fat is not bad, but digestion becomes slower. Slow digestion is useful sometimes, but risky near intense exercise. Large mixed meals too close can cause discomfort and sluggishness. So timing starts with one question. What must this meal accomplish? Fuel, comfort, recovery, or appetite control require different timing decisions. During training, nutrients matter mainly when duration or density gets high. Most lifting sessions under 90 minutes need little beyond water. Longer sessions may benefit from carbohydrates to protect performance late. Performance drops when blood glucose falls and perceived effort rises. That late session decline often looks like poor discipline, not underfueling. But biology sets limits before motivation can rescue output. Post-workout nutrition is useful, yet it is usually misunderstood. The goal is recovery speed, not a mythical anabolic deadline. After training, muscles become more responsive to amino acids and glucose. That sensitivity helps replenish glycogen and stimulate muscle protein synthesis. But the window stays open longer than social media suggests. If you ate earlier, urgency drops because amino acids still circulate. If you train fasted, recovery nutrition becomes more important sooner. Protein after training is smart because repair machinery is elevated. A solid protein dose helps cross the leucine threshold. Leucine is the amino acid that strongly triggers building signals. Carbohydrates after training matter most when another session comes soon. Fast glycogen restoration matters for athletes training twice daily. It matters less when tomorrow offers plenty of recovery time. This is why context beats universal rules every time. Morning lifters often benefit from earlier carbohydrates and lighter digestion. Evening lifters may prefer larger pre-training meals after daily activity. Shift workers need consistency more than perfect textbook timing. Fat loss phases also change timing priorities substantially. Strategic meal timing can control hunger and protect training quality. Poor timing during dieting often causes flat sessions and muscle loss. Recovery is not just muscles. The nervous system also consumes resources. Well-timed nutrition helps stabilize output, mood, and repeated performance. Timing matters most when it serves the training demand. Total intake still rules, but timing decides how well it works. Most people chase timing details before fixing total intake errors. That reverses priorities and limits progress despite good intentions. Energy balance sets the environment where timing can actually matter. Without enough calories, timing cannot rescue muscle growth effectively. Without enough protein, timing cannot trigger meaningful repair processes. So timing refines results, but cannot replace foundational nutrition. Now, consider how muscle protein synthesis actually behaves over time. It rises after training, then gradually returns toward baseline levels. Feeding protein creates spikes, not constant elevated building. Each meal triggers a temporary increase in synthesis activity. Spacing meals allows repeated stimulation across the entire day. Eating protein constantly does not keep synthesis permanently high. The system becomes temporarily resistant after each stimulation period. This is called the muscle-full effect in research literature. It means timing between meals influences total daily stimulation. Too frequent feeding reduces the amplitude of each anabolic response. Too infrequent feeding reduces total number of stimulation events. Balance emerges around 3 to 5 protein feedings daily. Each feeding should reach sufficient leucine to trigger signaling. This creates repeated pulses of muscle protein synthesis across time. Now connect this to training timing and recovery demands. Training sensitizes muscle to protein for many hours afterward. So post-workout meals are part of a longer recovery timeline. Not a single moment, but a sustained period of responsiveness. This explains why missing an immediate shake is not catastrophic, but ignoring protein distribution across the day is problematic. Next, consider glycogen, the stored carbohydrate inside muscle fibers. Glycogen fuels moderate to high-intensity training efforts. Depletion reduces force output and increases perceived difficulty. Replenishment depends on carbohydrate intake and insulin response. After training, muscles absorb glucose more efficiently than usual. This improves glycogen storage when carbohydrates are consumed. However, full restoration still takes many hours, not minutes. So urgency depends on when the next session will occur. Athletes with multiple sessions must prioritize rapid carbohydrate intake. Single session lifters can distribute carbohydrates more flexibly. This removes unnecessary pressure around exact post-workout timing. Now, examine hormonal responses often exaggerated in fitness culture. Insulin is not just a storage hormone, but a regulator. It reduces protein breakdown and supports nutrient transport into cells. But spikes alone do not guarantee muscle growth outcomes. Context of training and total intake determines the final result. Cortisol rises during training as part of normal energy regulation. This is not inherently harmful when balanced by recovery nutrition. Fear of cortisol often leads to unnecessary intra-workout feeding. Again, duration and intensity should guide that decision. Finally, consider practical implementation instead of theoretical perfection. Consistency beats precision when life constraints limit ideal timing. Build a repeatable structure aligned with your training schedule. Then adjust timing details only when performance or recovery demands it. Nutrient timing fails when it ignores individual lifestyle constraints. Perfect plans collapse when they cannot be executed consistently. So practical timing must match schedule, appetite, and digestion patterns. Otherwise, physiology is correct, but behavior breaks the system. Start by anchoring meals around your training window first. This creates structure without overcomplicating the full daily plan. Place a protein-rich meal within a few hours before training. This ensures amino acids are available during the session. Add carbohydrates if performance output depends on sustained intensity. Then plan the next protein feeding within the recovery window. This continues the stimulation of muscle protein synthesis effectively. From there, distribute remaining meals evenly across the day. Avoid clustering all calories into 1 or 2 large feedings. That pattern reduces repeated anabolic signaling opportunities. Now, consider appetite as a regulatory signal, not just inconvenience. Hunger patterns often reflect energy demand and hormonal rhythms. Ignoring them makes adherence harder and increases diet fatigue. Strategic timing can reduce cravings and stabilize energy levels. For example, placing larger meals near training often improves control. Because training temporarily suppresses appetite in many individuals, this creates a natural window for higher intake without discomfort. Conversely, some people experience increased hunger after training. Their plan should anticipate and structure that response. Timing is therefore both physiological and behavioral optimization. Next, examine sleep, an often ignored component of nutrient timing. Late meals can influence sleep quality through digestion and hormones. Heavy meals close to bedtime may disrupt deep sleep phases. Poor sleep reduces recovery, hormone balance, and training performance. However, small protein feedings before sleep can support recovery. Slow digesting protein provides amino acids throughout the night. This may slightly improve overnight muscle protein balance. Again, context determines whether this detail is worth implementing. Now address a common mistake: copying athlete protocols blindly. Elite athletes train with volumes and frequencies most people never reach. Their timing strategies solve problems you may not even have. Applying them blindly adds complexity without meaningful benefit. Instead, scale timing strategies to your actual training demands. More demand increases the value of precise nutrient timing. Less demand shifts importance back to total intake and consistency. Finally, understand that timing is a tool, not a rule. Tools are effective only when applied to the right problem. Misapplied tools create frustration, not progress. Use timing to support performance, recovery, and adherence together. That integration is where real progress becomes sustainable. Precision matters, but only after fundamentals are consistently executed. When aligned properly, timing quietly enhances everything else. When misused, it becomes noise that distracts from real drivers. So ask not when to eat first, but why. Then let physiology guide timing, not trends. That is how nutrient timing actually becomes powerful. The final mistake is believing timing must be perfect every day. Biology is adaptive, not fragile to small timing inconsistencies. Small deviations do not erase progress when fundamentals remain stable. Stress about timing often creates more harm than timing itself. Cortisol from lifestyle stress can disrupt recovery more than meal timing. So rigid control without flexibility becomes counterproductive over time. Instead, aim for consistency within a flexible, structured framework. This preserves both physiological benefits and long-term adherence capacity. Now, consider weekly patterns, not just single-day precision. Your body responds to repeated signals across many training cycles. One imperfect day does not override weeks of consistent structure. Adaptation reflects averages, not isolated execution errors. This reduces anxiety around occasional missed optimal timing windows. Next, understand interaction between timing and training periodization. Hard phases demand tighter timing to support higher recovery needs. Deload or lighter phases allow more relaxed nutritional timing. Nutrition should scale with training stress, not remain static. This dynamic approach improves efficiency without unnecessary complexity. Also consider body composition goals when applying timing strategies. Muscle gain phases benefit from frequent protein distribution. Fat loss phases benefit from timing that controls hunger and energy. Performance phases prioritize fueling around demanding sessions. Different goals shift how timing variables should be prioritized. Now, examine long-term adaptation rather than short-term responses. Muscle growth results from repeated cycles of stress and recovery. Timing helps optimize each cycle, but cannot replace them. Skipping training removes the stimulus entirely, regardless of timing. So prioritize training quality before optimizing nutrient timing details. Now integrate everything into a simple decision-making framework. First, confirm total calories and protein meet your goal. Second, align meals to support training performance and recovery. Third, distribute protein across the day for repeated stimulation. Fourth, adjust carbohydrate timing based on training frequency and intensity. Fifth, adapt timing to lifestyle for sustainable consistency. This hierarchy prevents overthinking while preserving physiological effectiveness. It also filters out misinformation common in fitness culture. Most myths exaggerate small effects while ignoring major drivers. Timing is a small lever, but useful when applied correctly. Misunderstood, it becomes distraction rather than enhancement. Properly understood, it quietly improves efficiency and recovery. So remove urgency, keep structure, and apply timing with purpose. Let training create demand, then let nutrition respond strategically. This cause and effect alignment is the real principle behind timing. Not rules, not trends, but biological demand guiding behavior. Once understood, timing becomes simple rather than confusing. And simplicity is what allows consistency over months and years. That consistency is what ultimately drives visible physical change. Not perfect days, but repeated, effective patterns. Timing supports the system, but never replaces it. Use it wisely, and it becomes quietly powerful.